We've been together for 50 years. Let's take a breath and step back and ask ourselves, why are we here? What is our purpose? Who are we? We do different jobs that require different skills. We are diverse, from all sorts of backgrounds, in all corners of the country, but we're connected by a common purpose. Together, we fought for the things that matter most: fairness, equality, dignity, for a voice, for more political and economic power, for a better place to live and raise our kids. We are 627,000 public service workers. We are neighbors. We are family. We are strong. We are CUPE. The Canadian Union of Public Employees was born out of ambitious plans in tumultuous times. The 60s were a time of change, economic boom, social revolution, the civil rights and women's movements, flower power, Quebec's quiet revolution, conflict, protest, and change. Unions were growing as post-war baby boomers entered the workforce to face poor working conditions, low wages, and non-existent safety regulations. The newly formed Canadian Labour Congress knew that before workers could be organized, unions had to get organized. It urged like-minded labor unions to unite in common purpose, to grow, to be stronger. After 4 years of tough talks, the National Union of Public Service Employees and the National Union of Public Employees merged, sealing the deal in September 1963 at the founding convention in Winnipeg's Fort Garry Hotel and launching the Canadian Union of Public Employees. The path they took wasn't easy. While their names might have been similar, CUPE and NUPE were different unions with vastly different cultures. But over the next decade, differences were overcome.
It took us from 1956 to 1963 to get a merger. And during those years, there were times when I would have bet almost any amount of money that the merger had gone down the drain.
Everyone knew that unity would bring the strength needed to organize workers in the rapidly growing public sector. CUPE's leaders were drawn from its founding unions. NUPE's Robert Rintoul was elected Secretary-Treasurer. NUPE's Stan Little, a plain-spoken former factory, supermarket, and hydro worker, was elected President. Stan Little had long dreamed of bringing public service workers under one roof, and he was clear about the task ahead.
Paramount is the duty to secure full collective bargaining rights for all public employees. Second, the problem of contracting out, which is increasingly threatening the jobs of our members. Third, we must organize the unorganized.
In the 12 years of Little's leadership, CUPE's membership almost tripled as it became the biggest union in Canada. Little's mission? To take public service workers from collective begging to collective bargaining. The new union's first strike was over the right for public utility workers in Perth, Ontario to join the union. That struggle would continue. CUPE spent much of the 60s securing the most basic collective bargaining rights and fighting laws that discriminated against public service workers' rights to unionize. Each time CUPE secured new rights for public employees, it grew in size and strength. CUPE's growing numbers gave it the power it needed to make history. A series of innovative rotating strikes brought gains for 9,000 Hydro-Quebec workers. It was the first union in North America to organize province-wide bargaining for schools and hospitals. CUPE members were the first library workers to go on strike and the first police officers to go on legal strike. CUPE raised the bar for workers across the country, negotiating better benefits and vacations, and breaking Canadian records for negotiating hourly wages. But the new union understood that for lasting change, it had to look beyond the bargaining table and began training members for a new task. CUPE quickly became politically active, often working with our allies in the New Democratic Party. Together with leader Tommy Douglas, they celebrated the birth of national Medicare in 1966. Across the country, CUPE fought privatization, laws restricting collective bargaining and the right to join unions, and discrimination against public sector workers. An early show of CUPE's unity and power came in 1966, when nearly 2,000 members gathered at Ontario's legislature. They read a bill of wrongs, listing 10 pieces of legislation that explicitly discriminated against public employees.
The patience of the public employee is fast being pushed beyond the limits of endurance.
In the spring of 1972, 9,000 CUPE members joined hundreds of thousands of Quebec workers in the Common Front, a strike against the government that shut down the province. Calls for women's equality grew louder as more women joined the paid workforce. With the determination of activists like Grace Hartman, CUPE paved the way, winning women the right to wear pants at work, negotiating away rules forcing women to resign from their jobs when they got married, and fighting for pay equity. A major breakthrough came in 1967 when CUPE 101 in London, Ontario, did away with separate collective agreements for men and women. In 1971, the union adopted the 9-point plan on women's rights that would make CUPE a leader in the fight for equality throughout the 70s. CUPE was the only union of the time to adopt an extensive policy on the rights of women workers. In 10 short years, CUPE had united public sector workers. It had survived growing pains and internal struggles. It had created a fund for striking workers. CUPE had made history. It had influenced change. It was a force to be reckoned with. That solid foundation would soon be put to the test.